What if the person your village fears most is the only one who can save you? What if the monster in the shadows isn't hunting you but falling in love with you? Tonight, the river will decide Serafina's fate, but the one who rises from the darkness will change everything. The storm had been raging for hours, tearing through the small riverside village with unrelenting fury. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the swollen river that clawed at its banks like a living beast. The villagers shouted warnings, torches and lanterns struggling against the storm's breath. And somewhere between the chaos and the thunder, a scream pierced the night. Serafina, dragged by the current, her frail body was tossed like a rag doll between branches and jagged stones. She fought for air, her lungs burning as the river pulled her deeper. Her last glimpse above the surface was of shadowy figures on the shore, their voices frantic but fading. The water swallowed her whole. Darkness pressed in, heavy and merciless. Her chest ached as her strength drained away. But then something stirred beneath the river. A presence. A figure cutting through the currents with unnatural speed. Two eyes glowing crimson like fire in the abyss locked onto her. Not a man. Not human. Arms stronger than steel wrapped around her waist, pulling her free from the river's grip. She felt her body lifted, her lips brushing against cold skin. Then came the sensation of breaking the surface, the gasp of air, the sting of rain, and the steady heartbeat of the one who held her. She blinked, dazed, meeting a face carved in shadows. Tall, pale, with eyes that glowed like dying embers. His lips curled into something between hunger and fascination. The villagers would call him a monster, but to her, in that moment, he was salvation. Before she could speak, shouts erupted from the trees. Lantern light cut through the storm. "There! The vampire!" The man holding her stiffened, his grip tightening. His gaze shifted toward the approaching crowd, then back to her trembling form. He lowered his head until his lips nearly touched her ear. His voice was smooth, dark, and laced with danger. "You don't know what you are. Yet." Serafina's heart froze. And before she could ask what he meant, the torches broke through the trees. Dozens of villagers with weapons raised. The mob surged closer, torches blazing, their shouts of monster, cutting through the storm. The crimson-eyed vampire Lucien stood motionless, rain streaming down his pale face as he clutched Serafina tighter. The villagers raised spears and arrows, their rage trembling in the night air. Serafina wanted to scream to tell them he had saved her, that she would already be dead if not for him. But her voice caught in her throat. She felt his chest rise and fall in calm, unnatural stillness, as though he'd stood like this countless times before. Then, in a blur of motion, the world shifted. The torches blurred into streaks of fire. The villagers' cries stretched into echoes. Wind tore at her hair as Lucien vanished from the riverbank, moving faster than her eyes could follow. One moment she was drowning in fear, the next she was pressed against his chest as the forest whipped past in a dizzying blur. By the time he stopped, silence ruled. No storm, no torches, no angry mob. Only a cavern hidden beneath twisted rock and veils of moss lit faintly by the flicker of fire against stone. Lucien set her gently on a carved slab, almost reverently, as though she were made of glass. His eyes studied her, glowing softer now, though no less dangerous. "They would have burned you with me," he said, his voice low, carrying both fury and sorrow. "Humans fear what they cannot control." Serafina's body shivered not just from the storm but from the realization of where she was. A lair, a vampire's den. Her mind screamed at her to run, yet her heart whispered otherwise. She pressed a hand to her chest, trying to steady her racing heartbeat. "Why did you save me?" she asked, her voice barely audible over the crackle of the fire. Lucien tilted his head, as though the question were strange. "Because I saw something in you the river could not drown." His gaze lingered too long, tracing her face as if searching for something buried beneath her skin. And when he stepped closer, the warmth of the flames was swallowed by the cold radiance of his presence. Her breath hitched. She should have feared him. Every story told of vampires spoke only of blood and death. Yet there was no hunger in his stare. No, there was something else. Recognition. Before she could find the courage to press him, his lips curved, the faintest hint of a smile dancing at the edges. He leaned down close enough that she could feel the whisper of his breath against her ear. "Your blood," he murmured, voice like velvet laced with steel, "is not ordinary." Her heart stuttered, the words striking deeper than she understood. But before she could ask what he meant, the shadows stirred, and in a blink, Lucian was gone, swallowed by the cavern's darkness as though he had never been there. She was alone, alone in the vampire's lair, with only his words echoing in her mind. The cavern walls seemed to breathe with her. The fire hissed low, shadows stretching long across the stone as Seraphina sat trembling on the slab. Lucian's words, "Your blood is not ordinary," repeated in her mind, circling like vultures. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to calm the storm inside her chest, but then she felt it. A heat, subtle at first, burning against her skin. She lowered her gaze and froze. On her wrist, where Lucian's hand had held her, a mark now glowed faintly beneath her skin. It shimmered like liquid fire, curling into the shape of a crescent entwined with veins that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Her breath caught. She scrubbed at it with her sleeve, tried to wash it with water from a nearby basin, but the mark did not fade. It only burned brighter, as though alive. Fear clawed its way through her throat. She had to get out. She had to know what this meant. By the time dawn touched the horizon, she slipped from the hidden cavern and made her way back to the village, drenched and shivering. The streets were quiet, still scarred from the storm. She wrapped her wrist in cloth, hiding the mark, and went straight to the only person she dared trust, the healer, old Mayra. The healer's hut smelled of herbs and smoke. Mayra listened quietly as Seraphina unwrapped the cloth, revealing the shimmering crescent. The old woman gasped, stumbling back until her hands pressed against the wooden wall. "No," Mayra whispered, her eyes wide with terror. "Not you." Seraphina grabbed her arm. "Tell me what it means." The healer's voice cracked. "This is no blessing. It is the vampire's claim. His touch has bound you. Do you not know the stories? Once marked, a soul belongs to him forever." The words struck like a blade to the heart. Seraphina staggered, clutching her wrist as though she could tear the mark free. Bound? Forever? The thought of Lucian's cold eyes, his voice whispering against her ear, burned hotter than the mark itself. "No," she choked. "He saved me. He wouldn't." Mayra gripped her shoulders. "Child, you don't understand. It does not matter what you believe. This mark is hunger itself. It will draw him to you, and it will draw you to him. You cannot fight it. You cannot." The healer stopped abruptly, her gaze flicking toward the door. Seraphina followed her eyes too late. The door creaked open. Elias, her stepbrother, stood in the doorway, eyes dark as coals. He had heard everything. His jaw clenched, his fists tight at his sides. "Vampire's claim," he spat, voice dripping with disgust. "So it's true, you've betrayed us all." The chill of dread clung to Seraphina as she stumbled from the healer's hut. Elias's footsteps had already vanished into the night, swallowed by the storm's remnants. The council hall's bell soon tolled, each strike a hammer against her chest. By dawn, the entire village knew. Hands seized her before she could run. Villagers' faces she had known since childhood dragged her through the muddy square, their whispers sharper than knives. Cursed. Claimed. Betrayer. The mark on her wrist burned beneath its cloth as though mocking her silence. The great hall loomed ahead, a fortress of timber and stone. Inside, torches lit the circle where the council sat, their faces grim. At the center, a pyre of wood smoldered, ready to be lit. Elias stood tall beside the head councilman, his eyes filled with triumph and scorn. "She bears the vampire's claim," he declared, pointing at her bound wrist. "She is no longer one of us. She belongs to the creature you all fear." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Seraphina's knees threatened to give, but she forced herself upright. "It isn't true," she cried. "Yes, he saved me, but he never harmed me. He didn't ask for this mark. I don't even know what it means." The head councilman slammed his staff against the stone. "Silence, girl. You expect us to believe a vampire spared you? That he touched you and left you alive? Do not insult us with lies." Tears blurred her vision, but anger rose in her chest. "I swear it. If he wanted me dead, the river would have taken me. If he wanted my blood, I'd already be gone. He saved me." Her words echoed, fragile against the weight of centuries of fear. The council whispered among themselves, voices low and tense. Finally, the verdict came. "You are marked. Whether by force or by choice, it matters not. The bond cannot be undone. By law, you are a danger to this village. You will be exiled at dusk. If you return, you will burn." Seraphina's breath caught. Exile. Alone, stripped from her home, branded a traitor. The crowd erupted, some cheering, others weeping. Elias's smirk cut through the noise like a blade. As guards seized her arms to drag her away, Seraphina screamed, "Please listen. He is not what you think. You don't understand." The councilman raised his hand. "Enough. The trial is over. At dusk she will leave this village, or the fire will take her." The torches flared high, their light painting the hall in shades of judgment. Seraphina's body shook, her voice lost against the tide of hatred. And then, silence fell. The doors creaked open. Cold air rushed into the hall, snuffing some of the flames. The villagers turned, their whispers dying on their lips. There, framed by the storm and shadows, stood Lucien. His crimson eyes glowed, his presence filling the chamber like a predator among prey. Slowly he stepped forward, his voice calm but laced with steel. "If you wish to kill her," his gaze swept over the council like a blade, "then you'll have to kill me first." The council chamber froze in stunned silence. Torches sputtered as if bowing to the figure in the doorway. Lucien's crimson gaze cut through the smoke, unflinching, unafraid. His tall frame seemed carved from the storm itself, a presence that turned every man into prey. "Monster!" one villager shouted, but his voice trembled. Lucien stepped forward, boots echoing across the stone floor. "You call me monster, yet you would burn a girl for surviving. Perhaps you should look into your own mirrors before naming demons." Gasps rippled through the hall. The guards tightened their grip on Seraphina, dragging her closer to the pyre. She struggled against them, but their hold was iron. "Let her go," Lucien said, voice low but carrying like thunder. The head councilman slammed his staff against the ground. "You dare enter sacred ground? You break the pact, vampire. You doom yourself." Lucien's smile was sharp, dangerous. "The pact was broken long before tonight." In a blur too fast for human eyes, he moved. The guards restraining Seraphina crumpled, their weapons torn from their hands. Flames from the torches flared as Lucien struck with preternatural speed, disarming hunter after hunter, his movements both brutal and graceful like a storm-given flesh. The crowd screamed and scattered. Elias lunged forward with a blade, his fury a mask for his fear. But Lucien caught the weapon bare-handed, the steel snapping as though it were nothing more than brittle wood. "Stay away from her," Elias spat, shielding Seraphina even as his body trembled. Lucien's gaze softened only when it fell on Seraphina. "You're mine to protect," he murmured, almost too low to hear. Before the councilman could issue another command, Lucien seized Seraphina and pulled her against him. With a surge of strength, he leapt upward, impossibly high, shattering the wooden beams above. They soared into the stormy night, leaving fire and chaos in their wake. The wind lashed at her face as the village shrank below, torches now tiny sparks in the darkness. Seraphina clung to him, half terrified, half breathless. She had known he was powerful, but this was something else. When he finally set her down at the edge of the forest, his chest heaved with restrained fury. Rain soaked his dark cloak, dripping from his hair like molten silver. "You saved me again," Seraphina whispered, her voice trembling. He turned to her, eyes burning with an ancient fire. "You still don't understand. I am no ordinary vampire. I am Alpha, leader of the hidden bloodlines, and by coming for you tonight, I have declared war on your people." Her heart hammered, torn between awe and fear. Alpha, a word that carried both power and doom. Before she could speak, the forest went eerily silent. No wind, no rain, just the whisper of something swift cutting through the air. Lucian's eyes widened. "Get down!" The silver arrow tore through the night like lightning. Seraphina barely had time to scream before Lucian shoved her to the ground. The shaft struck deep into his shoulder, the sound of searing flesh filling the air as the Alpha staggered back, smoke rising where metal kissed his skin. "Lucian!" Seraphina scrambled to her knees, hands pressing against the wound as his body convulsed. The silver hissed like acid, veins blackening around the arrow's head. His fangs flashed in pain, his crimson eyes dimming. From the shadows, footsteps crunched across the soaked earth. A hooded figure emerged, bow in hand, another silver arrow nocked and ready. Seraphina's heart thrashed against her ribs. The figure pulled back his hood. Her breath shattered. Elias? Her stepbrother's face, twisted in fury and determination, gleamed beneath the stormlight. His eyes, once filled with boyish warmth, now burned with something colder. "I warned them," he hissed, raising the bow higher. "I told them what you've become, and now I'll end it myself." Seraphina staggered to her feet, hands shaking. "Elias, please stop. You don't understand. He saved me." "Saved you?" Elias spat, his voice thick with rage. "He marked you, bound you to him like cattle. You're his weakness now, and I'll sever it before you doom us all." Lucian forced himself upright, fangs bared despite the arrow buried in his flesh. Blood ran down his chest in thick rivers, but still he shielded Seraphina with his body. "Coward," he growled, his voice low and deadly. "You strike from shadows while hiding behind lies." Elias's grip on the bow tightened. His eyes flicked to Seraphina, and for a fleeting heartbeat sorrow cracked through his rage, but it vanished as quickly as it came. "You don't see it, do you, sister?" His voice shook with something beyond hate-fear. "This isn't about saving you, it's about saving everyone else." Seraphina's tears mingled with the rain. "I am still me. I'm not cursed, Elias. He isn't what they say. Please, I need you to trust me." "Trust?" Elias's laugh was hollow, bitter. "You were never meant to survive that river. You were chosen by him, claimed, and now you are the key." Lucian lunged, despite the silver burning in his flesh, his claws extended, ready to tear Elias apart. But Elias loosed his words faster than any arrow words that froze Lucian in place. "She's the key to destroying your kind." The storm seemed to hold its breath after Elias's words. Seraphina's pulse thundered in her ears as she stared at her stepbrother, unable to comprehend. "The key to destroying your kind." The sentence hung in the night like a curse. Lucian's fangs gleamed as he staggered forward, the silver arrow still burning inside his shoulder. "What do you know, boy?" His voice was dark, strained with pain, but deadly sharp. Elias smirked, lowering his bow. "More than she does. More than you ever should." Seraphina stepped between them, hands outstretched. "Stop! Both of you! Elias, what are you talking about? What do you mean I'm the key?" For the first time, her brother's gaze softened, as though torn between rage and pity. "Mother never told you, did she?" "Of course she didn't. She wanted to protect you." His jaw clenched. "But blood doesn't lie, Seraphina. You're not just a village girl. You carry the curse of the Crimson Line." Her breath caught. What?" Lucian's eyes widened, shock flickering through the crimson glow. "Impossible. That bloodline was eradicated centuries ago." Elias's bitter laugh pierced the storm. "Eradicated? No. Hidden. Buried among us until it resurfaced in her." His glare fell on Seraphina like a knife. The child of fire and night, born to either cleanse the world of vampires or damn it forever. Seraphina's knees weakened, the rain around her suddenly colder. Cleanse. Or damn. The words echoed like a prophecy she had never asked to inherit. Lucian's hand curled into a fist, his body trembling. If this is true, then both hunters and vampires will hunt her. No side will let her live free. Elias's eyes narrowed. Exactly. Which is why I'll do what must be done. Better she dies as my sister than lives as your weapon. He raised his bow again, but Lucian surged forward despite the silver burning through his veins. With a guttural snarl, he ripped the arrow from his shoulder, the wound hissing as blood dripped into the mud. His power flared, eyes blazing. "Touch her," Lucian growled, his voice shaking the air, "and I'll end you where you stand." The tension snapped as thunder cracked overhead. Elias hesitated, his grip faltering on the bowstring. Finally, with a sneer, he lowered the weapon. "The council will see the truth soon enough. You won't be able to protect her forever." He vanished into the trees, leaving Seraphina trembling between the two worlds, pulling her apart, blood and shadow, family and fate. Lucian turned to her, his expression unreadable. "The crimson line." His voice was hushed, reverent, as if speaking of a ghost. "Your blood is rarer than I imagined. You are the fulcrum, Seraphina. You will either redeem my kind or destroy us all." Her chest tightened, tears burning her eyes. "I don't want this. I never asked for this." Lucian's gaze softened, but his voice remained grave. "Choice is a luxury fate rarely gives." Far from the forest, in the sanctuary of the village chapel, candlelight flickered against old stone. The priest knelt before the altar, whispering ancient words. Behind him, Elias stepped into the shadows, his bow slung across his back. "She is marked," Elias said. "She carries the crimson curse." The priest's eyes gleamed with grim certainty. "Then the path is clear. At the next full moon the girl must be sacrificed. Her blood spilled upon the altar will cleanse this land of the darkness once and for all."
The storm had passed, but the silence it left behind was heavier than thunder. In Lucian's lair, Seraphina sat near the faint glow of the fire, her fingers tracing the strange mark that still pulsed faintly on her wrist. Every time she looked at it, she remembered Elias's words, the crimson line. Curse or salvation? Lucian lingered in the shadows, half turned away from her. His wound had closed, but the lingering scent of her blood still clung to the air. He gripped the edge of a stone wall, veins blackening in his forearm as he fought the rising hunger inside him. The storm had masked it before, but now, in the stillness, every beat of her heart drummed in his ears like a summons. "Why are you staring at me like that?" Seraphina's voice was fragile but not afraid. She tilted her head, meeting his burning gaze. Lucian's jaw tightened. "Because every part of me is at war. One part wants to protect you, the other." He stepped closer, his fangs glinting faintly in the firelight. "Wants to taste you." Her breath caught. The air between them seemed to thrum, thick with something unspoken. She should have pulled away, yet something inside her whispered to stay. "Then why don't you?" she whispered, not knowing whether it was challenge or surrender. Lucian froze. A muscle in his jaw twitched as he turned sharply, retreating to the shadows. "Because if I start, Seraphina, I may not stop." The words struck her like lightning, terrifying and thrilling all at once. She pressed her palm against her chest, as if steadying the wild rhythm of her heart. They spent the night in uneasy silence, their unspoken tension of fire neither dared touch. But as the hours dragged on, Seraphina's eyelids grew heavy. She drifted into restless sleep near the fire, unaware that her body was not her own. Her hand twitched. Her feet began to move. Without waking, Seraphina rose, her eyes glassy, her steps guided by some unseen pull. She walked past Lucian, who had sunk into brooding silence, and slipped into the dark passageways of the lair. Lucian stirred, his instincts prickling. He turned, but the chair where she had slept was empty. Panic flared in his chest. "Seraphina?" The echo of her footsteps answered faintly in the distance. He followed the sound through twisting tunnels, but she was faster, almost guided. Her bare feet padded across cold stone until at last she reached it, a massive iron gate, half buried in dust and vines. Symbols older than memory carved the stone arch above it. Lucian's eyes widened in horror. No, not there. Seraphina's hand pressed against the gate. The mark on her wrist flared brilliantly, brighter than fire. With a groan like the earth itself, the gate began to shift, stone grinding against stone. The forbidden vampire crypt was opening.
The air inside the crypt was colder than death itself. Mist coiled from the floor like pale fingers, curling around Seraphina's bare feet as she stepped forward, still half asleep, her eyes unblinking. The mark on her wrist pulsed brighter and brighter, as if the tomb itself responded to her presence. Lucian burst through the entrance just in time to see her cross the threshold. His voice thundered through the hollow chamber. "Seraphina, don't go any further." But she didn't stop. Her body moved with unnatural certainty, as though invisible strings guided her deeper into the darkness. Candles along the crypt walls sputtered to life one by one, casting a sickly glow over the stone carving scenes of war, fire, and rivers of blood. And then she saw it. At the far end of the chamber, on a raised dais of black stone, knelt a figure bound in colossal chains forged of silver and obsidian. His hair was long and dark, tangled like roots. His body wasted from centuries of imprisonment, but his eyes, oh, his eyes glowed like molten gold. The prisoner lifted his head. A smile, cracked and ancient, spread across his face. "Daughter of fire." His voice rasped like dry leaves, yet it carried through the chamber with chilling weight. "You have come at last." Seraphina's trance faltered. She blinked, shivering as if suddenly waking. Who are you?" The vampire's gaze pierced her. "I am Malric, Alpha before your Alpha, the one they feared too much to kill, so they chained me beneath the earth." His head tilted, his voice softening into a whisper of temptation. "You are the key. Free me, and the truth of your blood will be revealed." Seraphina clutched her wrist, the glowing mark now burning hot against her skin. "My blood," she whispered. Malric's smile widened, his voice curling like smoke around her mind. "Yes, you are born of flame and night. Your touch can shatter the chains of gods." Behind her, Lucian's footsteps pounded across the chamber. His face was pale, his fangs bared in fury and fear. "Seraphina, get away from him!" She spun, startled by the raw panic in his voice. "Lucien, he knows about me. He knows what I am." "Do not listen." Lucian's voice broke, his eyes burning with desperation. "That thing is a plague, a monster beyond anything you can imagine. He must never be freed." But Malric's laugh rolled through the chamber like thunder. "Your Alpha trembles, girl. Ask yourself why. What truth is he hiding from you?" The ground trembled beneath their feet. The chains binding Malric rattled, sparks of fire and shadow leaping where Seraphina's mark glowed. She staggered backward, torn between Lucian's pleading voice and Malric's commanding whisper. "Touch the chains," Malric urged, stretching one trembling hand toward her. "Set me free, daughter of fire." Lucian lunged forward, but too late. The mark on her wrist flared like a starburst, sending a shockwave rippling through the chamber. The crack of splitting chains echoed like thunder. Dust rained from the ceiling as Malric's laughter filled the tomb, deep and terrible. One by one, the bindings forged to hold him for centuries splintered, until with a final earth-shaking shatter, the last chain broke free. Lucian leapt forward, shoving Seraphina behind him. His eyes glowed crimson, his fangs bared. "Stay back," he hissed, voice thick with desperation. Malric rose slowly, towering over them both. His gaunt frame filled with strength as if centuries of hunger had been quenched in a single breath. His golden eyes locked onto Lucian, and his smile sharpened into cruelty. "Well, well," Malric drawled, flexing his unchained arms. "My little brother dares to guard the daughter of fire. How quaint." Seraphina froze. "Brother?" The word caught in her throat. She looked at Lucian, whose face twisted in anguish. Lucian's silence was answer enough. Malric's laughter boomed, mocking and venomous. "Did he not tell you, girl? Did he not whisper that your savior is blood of the same line that cursed this land? That I am his elder, his Alpha, cast into the dirt so he could play king in my absence?" Lucian lunged, claws extending, striking with fury. Their clash shook the chamber, two predators locked in primal combat. Fangs slashed, shadows collided with sparks of fire. Serafina stumbled back as stone cracked beneath their blows. "Lucien," she cried, reaching for him, but Malric's speed was monstrous. In a blur, he slammed Lucien against the crypt wall, pinning him with inhuman strength. "Still weak, little brother," Malric sneered, pressing harder until Lucien gasped in pain. "Always hiding behind your oaths, your rules. But me? I take what I want." His gaze slid to Serafina. She froze as he stepped toward her, hunger blazing in his eyes. The mark on her wrist pulsed wildly as if calling to him. "Don't touch her!" Lucien roared, breaking free with a burst of power, but Malric was faster. With a blur of motion, he was upon Serafina, his hand gripping her arm, his breath hot against her neck. She struggled, striking at him, but his grip was iron. "Your blood sings to me," he whispered, voice thick with hunger and triumph. "And I will be the first to taste it." Lucien lunged, but too late. Malric's fangs sank into Serafina's neck. Her cry echoed through the crypt, her vision blurring as fire and ice tore through her veins. The mark on her wrist burned brighter than ever, casting the chamber in blinding light. "No!" Lucien's roar shook the earth. He launched himself at Malric, but the ancient vampire released Serafina at the last instant, lips stained with her blood. Malric's golden eyes gleamed with savage delight. "Delicious. She will end you, brother, or she will crown me." Before Lucien could strike again, Malric dissolved into shadow, vanishing into the night beyond the crypt, his laughter lingering like poison. Serafina collapsed into Lucien's arms, her pulse erratic, her blood still glowing faintly where it had been stolen. Cliffhanger. Her trembling lips parted as her vision darkened, and she whispered, "Lucien, something's changing," before losing consciousness. "Lucien." Serafina's voice was barely a thread of sound, her lips trembling as her body convulsed. "Something's changing." Then her eyes fluttered shut and she went limp in his arms. Lucien's heart, a dead thing that had not beat in centuries, thundered inside him. Panic carved across his face as he pressed his hand against her wound. The bite marks glowed faintly, shimmering with a crimson light that pulsed in rhythm with her faltering heartbeat. "No," he rasped. His fangs clenched. "I won't let him take you. Not like this." Her pulse slowed once, twice, then nearly stilled. But before death claimed her, her body shuddered violently. Her veins glowed faint red beneath her skin, twisting like molten fire. Her eyes snapped open for a heartbeat, irises flashing a deep, unnatural crimson before fading back to human. Lucien recoiled, horrified. "Malric's venom. It's corrupting you." His voice dropped, thick with guilt. "And it's my fault. I should never have left him alive." He gathered her in his arms, racing through the forest with speed born of desperation. The night blurred around him, branches clawing at his skin as the forest seemed to whisper with Malric's mocking laughter. At the edge of the woods, a figure watched from the shadows Elias. The flicker of torchlight illuminated his face as he whispered to himself, venom dripping from every syllable. "She's turning. I won't let that monster's blood claim her." His hand tightened around the silver dagger hidden beneath his cloak. Better she die than become one of them. By the time Lucien reached his hidden lair, Serafina's condition had worsened. She tossed weakly against his chest, fever burning through her veins, whispers spilling from her lips. "No, don't leave me. Malric." Lucien froze, the name slicing through him like a blade. His jaw tightened. Even poisoned, even unconscious, Malric's venom pulled at her mind like a chain. He laid her on the stone altar, trembling fingers brushing her burning skin. "Serafina, fight it," he begged, his voice raw. "You are not his, you are not mine. You are stronger than this curse, don't let him claim you." Her body arched suddenly, her nails digging into the stone as if something inside her clawed for freedom. For a moment, her crimson-marked wrist blazed with fire, illuminating the chamber. Then the glow dimmed, leaving her pale and trembling. Lucien hovered, torn between rage and despair. "If I don't save you, he will own you. If I do, the council will hunt us both. Either way, Your life is no longer your own. In the shadows of the lair, unseen, Elias crept closer, dagger glinting in the moonlight filtering through the cracks. His eyes hardened. She must die tonight. Seraphina's breath hitched. Her lashes fluttered and she stirred weakly. Lucian leaned close, hope breaking through his anguish. But her lips moved, and a single whisper escaped. Malric. Her voice carried his name like a prayer. Lucian's face fell, his entire body stiffening in fury and grief. And in the corner of the chamber, Elias raised his blade to strike. Lucian's head snapped toward the shadows, fangs flashing as his senses sharpened. He could feel the heartbeat too fast, too close. Elias stepped forward, silver dagger gleaming in his grip, his eyes locked on Seraphina's fragile form sprawled across the stone altar. You should have let her die in the woods, Elias spat, voice quaking with rage and fear. She's cursed now. That venom inside her will eat her alive or worse, turn her into one of you. Lucian's growl rumbled like thunder in his chest. Touch her and I'll tear you apart. For a long moment the two men stared, predator and hunter, bound by the same girl whose shallow breaths filled the chamber. Finally, Elias lowered the dagger a fraction, but his eyes never softened. Lucien ignored him, kneeling beside Seraphina. Her skin was pale as moonlight, veins faintly glowing with Malric's poison. Yet her hand twitched toward him, fingers curling weakly as if reaching for his. He clasped it, his voice lowering to a whisper that carried the weight of centuries. There's something you don't know, Seraphina. Something my people have hidden even from themselves. His eyes darkened, haunted. An old prophecy, one we hoped would never come to pass. Elias scoffed. Prophecies. Lies to justify monsters. But Lucien pressed on, gaze fixed on Seraphina's still face. It speaks of a girl human-born, yet touched by two brothers' blood. Her fate will either unite our kind with yours, or unleash a war that burns both races to ash. His voice cracked on the last word, anguish lacing every syllable. The silence that followed was suffocating. Elias stiffened, horror dawning in his expression. Two brothers' blood? His gaze darted to Seraphina's marked wrist, then back to Lucien. She's already been bitten. By you. By Malric. Gods. Lucien's jaw clenched. She wasn't meant to bear this curse. Malric has forced the prophecy into motion. Elias's hand trembled on his dagger. Then there's only one way to stop it. Kill her before it's too late. Lucien surged to his feet, seizing Elias by the throat and slamming him into the wall. His fangs grazed Elias's skin as he snarled, If you so much as breathe that thought again, I'll drain you where you stand. But before either could strike, a sound shattered the chamber. Seraphina gasped. Her body arched violently, crimson light flaring in her veins. Her lips parted in a scream that shook the air. No! Lucien whirled back to her side, horror flooding his face. Her eyes flew open, burning, glowing, alien, and she screamed again, clutching her head as if her skull was splitting apart. Her voice rang out, guttural and broken, but the name was unmistakable. Malric! Lucien froze. For in her scream, he heard something chilling, not just pain, not just Venom's corruption. It was recognition. It was connection. Seraphina's scream tore through the chamber, but then sudden silence. Her body went limp on the altar, chest barely rising. Lucien clutched her shoulders, shaking her. Seraphina, stay with me. But she was already gone. Not dead, not yet. Her pulse fluttered faintly under his hand, but her soul had been pulled elsewhere. Her eyelids fluttered as if trapped in a fever dream. Inside her mind, shadows swirled into shape. She stood barefoot in a wasteland of blackened trees and ash, the air heavy with the copper tang of blood. The moon above bled crimson, dripping scarlet light onto her skin. And then he appeared. Malric. No chains bound him now. His form was tall and broad, armor dark as obsidian, eyes glowing a wicked red. Yet his smile was soft, enticing. Daughter of fire, he murmured, voice silk and smoke. You came to me. Seraphina staggered back. I didn't choose this. Malric's laughter rolled across the dreamscape like thunder. But you did. Every breath you take since my bite pulls you closer. Do you feel it? The hunger? And she did. Deep in her gut, something stirred a gnawing, hollow ache that made her throat burn. She pressed her hand to her chest, horrified. Malric extended his hand. Your stepbrother despises you. Your council cast you out. Even Lucien. His lips curled in mock sympathy. He hides truths from you, truths that bind you in chains. But I offer freedom. No masters, no hunters, no fate written by ancient fools. Just power, and the world on its knees. Seraphina's heart hammered. His words dripped poison, yet the fire in her veins flared, whispering that he was right. The world had never shown her kindness. Why cling to it? She shook her head, though her hand trembled. You want me as your weapon. Malric stepped closer, shadows rippling off him like a living cloak. No, Seraphina, I want you as my queen. Her breath caught. For a heartbeat, the thought didn't sound like a curse, it sounded like belonging. But then another voice cut through the haze, distant yet fierce. Seraphina, fight him! Lucien's voice. She turned, straining toward the echo. Malric's grip tightened on her wrist, his nails digging into her skin. He cannot follow you here. He is weak. I am the one who can set you free. Her pulse thundered in her ears. 2 choices, 2 brothers, 2 futures clawing at her soul. She ripped her wrist free and screamed and woke. Her eyes snapped open to the dim chamber. Lucien was there holding her, relief breaking across his face. Elias lurked behind, dagger still in hand, suspicion etched into every line of his posture. Seraphina gasped for air. Her lips tingled, wet. Lucien's expression shifted, horror creeping into his eyes. Because crimson smeared her mouth. Thick, fresh. Her tongue tasted iron. And as she raised her trembling hand, she saw it blood streaking her fingers. But it wasn't hers. The chamber went still. Only Seraphina's ragged breaths broke the silence. Her fingers trembled as she wiped the blood from her lips, staring at the smear with wide, horrified eyes. I didn't. Her voice cracked. Elias stepped forward, dagger raised, his face pale with fury. She's feeding already. The corruption has begun. Lucien's snarl cut through the air, fangs flashing as he shoved Elias back. Touch her, and it's the last breath you draw. But the damage was done. Elias's whisper, venomous and fearful, slithered through the village like wildfire. By morning, every household knew. Seraphina, the stepdaughter they had scorned, had drunk blood. And worse, she might not be wholly human anymore. Drums sounded from the square. Men sharpened blades, women wept, children whispered. The council convened, their verdict swift. Prepare for war. Destroy Lucien's coven before the curse spreads. Seraphina stood apart, the weight of every gaze crushing her. Once she had been invisible, dismissed as too plain, too weak. Now every eye held terror, or hatred. Lucien, this is my fault, she whispered as he tried to shield her from the crowd's wrath. If I hadn't... It's him, Lucien growled, pacing like a caged wolf. Malric, his bite awakens something in you, but it doesn't define you. His hand brushed hers. You are still Seraphina. But inside, she wasn't sure. Because when the council accused her in the square, when villagers spat and called her demon-blooded, something stirred. Shadows. They slithered at the edges of her vision, coiling like serpents around her feet. At first, she thought it was her imagination, grief and fury conjuring illusions. But then the torches dimmed, their flames shrinking as though smothered by unseen hands. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Seraphina's eyes widened. The shadows listened to her. Her heart pounded, panic flaring. She tried to push them back, but the more she struggled, the stronger they grew. They surged outward, wrapping around the villagers' ankles, climbing higher, whispering in voices only she could hear. Stop, she screamed, clutching her head. Please, I don't want this. But the shadows obeyed her fear, not her will. Suddenly, a figure stumbled into her path, small, trembling. Mira, her childhood friend, the only one who had once defended her against cruel taunts. Mira's eyes were wide, terrified but tearful. "Serafina, it's me. Fight it, please." Serafina's breath hitched. She tried to pull back the shadows, but they wrapped tighter, writhing up Mira's throat like living ropes. Mira choked, her face paling, her hands clawing helplessly at the darkness. "No, no!" Serafina cried, dropping to her knees, clawing at the shadows with her bare hands. But they pulsed with her heartbeat, feeding on her fear, her rage, her despair. Lucien roared, straining against villagers who barred his way. Elias shouted, "See? She's cursed. She'll kill us all." And then Mira's eyes rolled back. Her body convulsed, the shadows tightening. Cliffhanger. Serafina screamed and the shadows surged violently, poised to crush the life from her only friend in front of the entire village. "Stop!" Serafina's scream tore through the square, her body racked with desperation. For a heartbeat, the shadows hesitated, twitching like startled snakes. She shoved every ounce of her will into them, and with a painful snap, they recoiled, vanishing into the ground. Mira collapsed into her arms, coughing, her skin pale but alive. Relief flooded Serafina, yet the crowd's silence was heavier than any scream. Fear clung to their faces like frost. To them, she hadn't saved Mira. She had almost murdered her. "She's a monster," someone whispered. "No!" Serafina clutched Mira tighter, trembling. "I didn't mean." But no one believed. That night, while Lucien fought to calm the villagers and argue for her life, Serafina slipped into the forest, Mira's words echoing faintly. "I still believe in you." She needed air, space to think, to breathe. But the trees whispered, their shadows longer than they should have been. "Running away won't change what you are." The voice slithered from the darkness. Elias emerged, bow in hand, his face calm, too calm. Serafina's chest tightened. "Elias, you saw what happened. You know I'm not in control." "You're right," he said softly, stepping closer. "You're dangerous, but you don't have to fear it. Malric can teach you. He understands what you are, what you're becoming." At that name, her blood went cold. "Malric." Elias's smile twisted. "Do you think I'd spend my life as nothing more than a powerless shadow of my father? Mocked, weak, forgotten. He offered me a choice, sister. Power for loyalty. Eternity instead of insignificance." She shook her head, disbelief warring with dread. "You pledged yourself to him? After all he's done?" His eyes burned with fanatic light. "Malric will bring a new dawn for our kind, humans and vampires alike. And you're the key. With you by his side, the old order falls. With you resisting him, he still wins because your blood belongs to him." Before she could reply, a sharp snap echoed through the forest. A trap sprung beneath her feet, ropes tightening, lifting her violently into the air. Serafina gasped, thrashing, but the harder she struggled, the tighter the cords bit into her flesh. Elias stepped beneath her, tilting his head like a predator admiring his catch. "I told you once, sister, you were born to serve a greater purpose. Tonight you fulfill it." The air chilled. Darkness thickened. From between the trees, a figure emerged, taller, broader, with eyes glowing like molten embers. "Malric." "Ah," he drawled, his smile cruel. "The daughter of fire, gift-wrapped and delivered." Serafina's heart pounded, her voice breaking into a whisper. "Lucien." As though answering her plea, branches snapped in the distance. A roar feral desperate shook the forest. Lucien burst into the clearing, fangs bared, sword gleaming silver. But he was too late. Malric's hand closed around Serafina's bound body, pulling her effortlessly from the trap into his arms. Shadows curled around him like loyal hounds as his laughter filled the night. Cliffhanger. Lucien froze, eyes blazing with fury and despair because Serafina was already in Malric's hands. Malric's laughter reverberated through the trees as shadows swallowed him and Serafina whole. One heartbeat, she was staring at Lucien's horrified face. The next, darkness yawned beneath her like a pit, and the world shifted. When the shadows released her, Seraphina staggered onto stone. The cavern around her pulsed with a living darkness, jagged pillars rising like teeth. At its center loomed a throne of obsidian, carved with runes that glowed faintly red, as though fed by blood. Malric settled upon it, his hand still firm on her shoulder. "Welcome, little flame," he purred, "to your kingdom." "I'm not yours," she spat, though her voice trembled. Malric chuckled, leaning forward. "Oh, but you are, by blood, by prophecy, and soon, by choice." He raised a dagger of black steel, slit his own palm, and held it toward her. The scent of his blood filled the chamber, ancient, potent, burning like fire and honey. Her throat tightened with a hunger she didn't want to feel. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "You're already changing," Malric murmured. "Your veins remember what they were meant for. Drink and rise as my blood queen." She resisted until his will pressed against her mind, heavy and relentless. Shadows coiled around her, prying her lips open as his blood dripped, warm and intoxicating, across her tongue. Heat surged through her body, every nerve aflame. She gasped, choking as her pulse slowed, her vision sharpening until the world gleamed crimson. A crown of twisted bone and silver appeared in Malric's hands, and with a flourish he set it upon her brow. "Behold," he declared to the empty cavern, though unseen whispers echoed as if countless spirits answered. "The dawn of my reign, my blood queen." "No!" The cavern doors exploded inward, stone shattering like glass. Lucien stormed through, eyes blazing gold, his sword dripping shadowlight. He lunged for Malric with a roar born of rage and desperation, but before steel could meet flesh, a blur intercepted him. Seraphina. Her hand caught Lucian's blade mid-swing. Sparks hissed where metal met her skin, but she didn't flinch. Her crimson-tinged eyes locked onto his, and Lucien's breath hitched at the sight, part terror, part heartbreak. "Seraphina," he rasped, his voice cracking. "It's me. Fight him. Fight this." Malric leaned back on his throne, smirking. "She already has, brother. She chose." Lucian's grip tightened, his fangs bared. "No, I won't believe it. He's controlling you." For a moment, her expression faltered, pain flickering across her face. Her fingers trembled on his sword. And then her lips parted, her voice low, trembling yet resolute. "Leave me, or I'll kill you." The blade slipped from Lucian's hands, as the weight of her words cut deeper than steel. Lucian's sword clattered to the cavern floor, the sound echoing like a death knell. Seraphina's crimson gaze cut through him, her whispered words, "Leave me, or I'll kill you," still burning in his chest. For a long, frozen heartbeat, he couldn't breathe. Then, with a sharp intake of air, he staggered back, his face a mask of devastation. "Seraphina." His voice broke, but he forced himself to turn away. Shadows curled around him, and in a rush of displaced air, he was gone. The silence he left behind was thick. Malric chuckled from his throne, his voice dripping with smug satisfaction. And thus the mighty Lucian flees, broken and beaten. "Tell me, my queen, did you feel it? The power of bending his will beneath your words?" Seraphina forced a smile, masking the storm raging inside her. "I had to push him away. To save him." She dipped her head in a mock bow, her voice smooth despite the ache in her chest. "Yes, my king." His pain tasted sweet. Malric's crimson eyes gleamed with approval. He rose, circling her like a predator admiring his prize. "You are learning. Soon you will crave not only their fear but their blood. Together we will reshape this world in darkness." But as she stood there, shadows writhing around her ankles, Seraphina's thoughts whispered rebellion. "I will never be yours. I'll play your game until I can end it." The nights that followed blurred into a dangerous charade. Seraphina walked at Malric's side, cloaked in regal darkness, her crown gleaming under torchlight. She feigned loyalty, laughing at his cruel jests, nodding when he spoke of conquest. But in secret, she listened. She memorized the layout of his fortress, the rituals of his court, the weaknesses hidden in his pride. Every time Malric touched her hand, a wave of revulsion coursed through her, but she disguised it behind a smile. When he commanded her to feed on a captured villager, she feigned hunger, only to spill the blood later in secret. And always, when she closed her eyes, she remembered Lucien's face wounded but unbroken. "I'll find a way back to you," she swore in silence. Yet the longer she played her role, the more Malric's gaze lingered on her with suspicion. His laughter came less freely. His questions grew sharper. One night, as the torches guttered low, he caught her in a rare, unguarded moment, her eyes drifting toward the broken moonlight spilling through a crack in the cavern roof. "Thinking of him?" Malric's voice cut the silence like a blade. Her heart lurched, but she forced a laugh. "No, only imagining the day when the world kneels before us." Malric smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. He stepped closer, his hand grazing her cheek, his touch icy and suffocating. "You are clever, my queen. Too clever. Perhaps dangerously so." Seraphina's pulse raced. She tried to speak, but shadows surged at Malric's command, coiling around her wrists and throat like living chains. Dark symbols burned into the air, ancient and jagged. "No more masks," he whispered. His voice was low, intimate but edged with cruelty. "If you are mine, then your very soul will bind to me. If you betray me, you will burn." The air thickened, heavy with dark magic, as the shadows pierced into her skin. Her body arched, a strangled cry escaping her lips as Malric's spell branded her spirit. Seraphina lay gasping on the cold stone floor, her wrists still seared with the glowing sigils Malric had burned into her soul. Every breath carried his presence now, a whisper like poisoned smoke coiling through her veins. She had thought she could resist him with silence and cunning, but now resistance felt like drowning. Malric crouched beside her, lifting her chin with one clawed finger. His smile was a wolf's grin, satisfied and cruel. "You belong to me now, Seraphina. Your soul is my leash, and it is time your people learned what that means." Her heart slammed in her chest. "What do you mean?" "Watch." His voice was silk over steel. With a snap of his fingers, the cavern walls shifted, shadows peeling back like curtains. A vision unfurled before her eyes, her village, the only home she had ever known, bathed in the glow of fire. Screams split the night as Malric's thralls descended like vultures, torches and blades flashing. Roofs collapsed. Children cried. The church bell tolled once, then fell silent in smoke. Seraphina's blood went cold. She lurched forward, but Malric's grip held her fast. "No! Stop this!" "Stop?" He tilted his head, mock innocence glinting in his crimson eyes. "Why would I stop? This is the price of your hesitation. You will not serve me truly until everything tying you to your old life is ash." The sight of her people burning seared her chest with helpless fury. Shadows stirred unbidden around her, curling like snakes, eager for release. For one mad heartbeat she wanted to let them loose, to drown Malric in the abyss he had forced into her veins. But the brand at her wrists pulsed and agony blazed through her body. "Fight me and you will burn with them," Malric whispered. "Or embrace your throne. Call yourself my queen before all, and I will spare what remains of this pathetic village." Her lips trembled. "If I give in, I lose myself. If I resist, they all die." A thunderous crash tore through the cavern. Stones split apart as shadows parted, and there, standing like a storm against the fire-lit chaos, was Lucian. His coven poured in behind him, blades gleaming, eyes burning with defiance. "Malric!" Lucian's voice shook the chamber. "Your reign ends tonight." Seraphina's breath caught. Hope surged and terror with it. Lucian had come for her, but he didn't know the price. If he fought Malric, the village would be lost. If she chose Lucian, Malric would slaughter her people without hesitation. The cavern erupted into battle. Vampires clashed, steel against fang, blood against flame. Lucien cut through Malric's thralls with unyielding fury, his eyes never leaving Seraphina. "I'm here. Hold on." Malric only laughed, spreading his arms wide as if conducting a symphony of ruin. "Choose, little queen. Him." He gestured to Lucien, fighting desperately, blood slick across his arm. Or them. His other hand flicked, and the vision of her burning village roared brighter, the screams sharper. The brand on her skin pulsed. Shadows answered her like a chorus, rising and twisting, eager to obey. Power thrummed inside her, terrifying and seductive. Lucien's gaze locked with hers across the chaos, filled with love and plea. Behind his eyes, she saw the boy who had once reached for her in secret, the man who had sworn to protect her, and in her mind, the screams of her people begged her not to forsake them. Seraphina staggered to her feet, shadows writhing violently around her, torn between two worlds, her heart and her home. The cavern shook beneath the violent release of Seraphina's power. Shadows surged like living rivers, tearing through stone and splitting the battlefield in two. One path carved toward Lucien, locked in desperate combat, the other toward the burning vision of her people. Screams filled her ears. Her heart pounded with impossible weight. Lucien's voice broke through the chaos, raw and desperate. "Seraphina, choose me. Don't give in to him." And then Malric's voice, venom laced with triumph. "Your people beg for salvation. Only I can give it. Bend, little queen. Bend and they live." The brand on her wrists flared, agony ripping through her veins. Shadows writhed like 1,000 claws inside her, tearing at the seams of her soul. She dropped to her knees, clutching her chest. She couldn't save both. Unless her mind flashed to the prophecy Lucien had whispered at the War Council. A girl with blood touched by two brothers will either unite or doom vampires. Her breath caught. Unite or doom. That was the choice all along. Her sacrifice, not her loyalty, was the key. With trembling strength, she staggered upright, her gaze locked on Lucien's across the battlefield. "Forgive me," she whispered, though he couldn't hear. Then she turned, facing Malric. The older vampire sneered, mistaking her resolve for surrender. "At last. You've chosen." "No," she said, voice steady, shadows coiling like wings at her back. "I've chosen both." Before Malric could react, she seized his arm, her fangs bared. Power screamed through her veins as she sank her teeth into him, drinking deep of the corrupted blood that had enslaved her soul. Malric roared in fury, his magic lashing violently, but she held on. Darkness surged into her like a tidal wave, hunger, rage, destruction. Lucien froze in horror, understanding too late what she intended. "Seraphina, stop!" But she wasn't finished. With shadows still binding her, she turned to Lucien, stumbling forward. His sword clattered to the floor as she pressed her mouth to his neck. "Trust me," she whispered, and before he could resist, she drank. Two currents collided inside her, light and dark, fire and shadow, brother against brother. Her scream shook the cavern as the bloodlines merged, the prophecy fulfilled in fire. Her veins glowed like molten iron, every shadow blazing with white-hot flame. Malric shrieked as the bond tethering him to her snapped, his body convulsed, flesh unraveling in streams of burning ash. "No! This power is mine!" But the torrent consumed him, ripping him apart until nothing remained but dust scattered in the storm of her fury. The cavern fell silent. Lucien staggered forward, reaching for her. "Seraphina, hold on! You did it! You destroyed him!" But she was already sinking, her body trembling, her glow fading. Her pulse faltered, her breath shallow. She looked up at him with crimson gold eyes, tears streaking her face. "It was the only way to save you all." He caught her in his arms as she collapsed, the heat of her power dimming to fragile warmth. "No, don't you dare leave me," he whispered fiercely, clutching her close. The first light of dawn spilled into the cavern, golden rays piercing the ruin. Dust from Malric's remains drifted like snow in the air, and in Lucien's arms, Seraphina went still. The cavern lay in ruin, silent except for Lucien's ragged breaths. He cradled Seraphina's lifeless form against him, his forehead pressed to hers as dawn spilled golden fire across the shattered stone. Her skin felt cold, too cold. Her lips were pale, her pulse absent. "No," he whispered hoarsely, rocking her gently as if motion alone could call her back. "Not like this. You gave everything. You can't leave me now." The light grew, burning away the shadows that Malric had cast. Villagers crept into the cavern, their faces stained with soot and tears. They stopped at the sight of Lucian on his knees, the once feared vampire broken in grief. No one dared speak. No one dared move. Then her body stirred. Lucian froze. Her chest, still and silent moments ago, rose with a breath slow, shuddering but undeniable. A faint glow flickered beneath her skin, not the crimson of corruption nor the pale light of humanity. It was something else, something new. Her eyes fluttered open. Not blue, not crimson, but a molten gold threaded with living shadow. A heartbeat echoed faintly through the cavern, steady, eternal. "Seraphina," Lucian whispered, disbelief breaking into awe. She sat upright in his arms, strength flooding her limbs as if the dawn itself had poured into her veins. The shadows that once clawed at her now coiled gently, obedient to her will, forming a dark crown above her head before dissolving into mist. The villagers gasped. One by one they dropped to their knees, not out of fear, but reverence. "The prophecy," one elder whispered, voice trembling. "The Alpha not of fang, nor of blood, but of the heart. She has risen." Lucian's throat tightened. He looked at her not as a king, not even as a vampire, but as a man who had just witnessed the impossible. "You're not bound anymore," he murmured. "Not by me, not by him. You're free." Seraphina rose, standing tall amid the ruin, dawn blazing behind her. Neither wholly human nor vampire, her very presence bent the air, a harmony of light and shadow. The villagers bowed deeper, their voices lifting in a chant of her name. For the first time she was not prey, she was not pawn, she was leader alpha of both worlds. Yet as the cavern basked in the radiance of her rebirth, a chill threaded through the air. Lucian stiffened, his instincts prickling. From the ruins where Malric's ashes had scattered, a whisper curled like smoke. Soft, mocking, eternal. "You think this is the end?" The shadows stirred, faint but unmistakable, gathering like a coiled serpent in the cracks of stone. Seraphina's golden gaze snapped toward the sound. Her new immortal heart beat stronger, but the truth was clear. Malric's soul had not been destroyed. It had endured. Her fingers curled into fists. Dawn might have crowned her, but night was not finished. In the silence after the villagers' chants, the whisper slithered again. "Little queen, you are mine still." Thank you for watching. Kindly subscribe for more emotional and werewolf romance stories.